Most people know this place for football, but Legion Field is really surrounded by neighborhoods that paid a price long before kickoff ever started. I'm driving past Legion Field right now, and from the outside, it just looks like an old stadium that's seen better days. But this area, these streets, these blocks, used to represent something much bigger in Birmingham. Legion Field wasn't just a sports venue. It was a symbol of pride, power, and visibility. And the neighborhoods around it were shaped, sometimes uplifted, sometimes damaged by that symbol. Legion Field opened in 1927. At the time, Birmingham was booming from steel, railroads, and industrial labor. The city wanted a stadium that showed it mattered, something big enough to host major events and put Birmingham on the national map. And for a long time, it worked. Legion Field became known as the football capital of the South. Championship games were played here, historic matchups, the Iron Bowl. This place mattered, not just locally, but nationally. But while the stadium brought attention and money, the neighborhood surrounding it didn't share equally in that success. The areas around Legion Field, West End, Graymont, parts of North Titusville were working class neighborhoods, mostly black families, steel workers, church communities, people who built their lives here long before the stadium became famous. These weren't temporary neighborhoods. They were established communities with homes, schools, corner stores, and deep social ties. But when large infrastructure projects like stadiums grow, the surrounding communities usually don't get a real voice in how that growth happens. Instead of opportunity, they often get displacement. Instead of investment, they get boxed in. Instead of growth, they get overlooked. During segregation, Legion Field hosted massive events, but access wasn't equal. Black residents lived close enough to hear the crowds and see the lights, but not close enough to fully benefit from what was happening inside. While the stadium was being celebrated, the neighborhoods around it were already dealing with underinvestment, limited access to resources, and policies that kept opportunity elsewhere. As Birmingham's economy shifted and still began to decline, many of these neighborhoods lost stable jobs. That loss didn't get replaced with meaningful reinvestment. Instead, public housing and low-income projects were placed near the stadium, not because it helped residents, but because the land was cheaper and already politically ignored. These housing projects weren't designed to create upward mobility. They were designed to manage poverty. Once that happens, businesses pull out, services decline, maintenance drops, and entire areas get labeled instead of supported. The stadium still hosted big games, but outside the gates, everyday life became harder. Then came highways, road expansions, and parking development. Homes were demolished, streets were cut through. Communities that had existed for generations were fragmented. When neighborhoods lose continuity, the damage doesn't show up immediately. It shows up years later in poverty cycles, abandoned homes, and disconnection. By the time Legion Field started losing prominence to newer stadiums, the neighborhoods around it had already been carrying decades of neglect. As major events moved elsewhere, the stadium aged. But when the spotlight left, the surrounding neighborhoods didn't suddenly recover. They were left with aging infrastructure, limited opportunity, and a landmark that no longer brought consistent economic activity. Now, when you drive through this area, the contrast is impossible to miss. A massive stadium built for crowds, surrounded by quiet streets that never received the same level of care. Public housing close enough to hear the echoes of what used to be, but far from the benefits those moments created. This wasn't accidental. This is what happens when cities build monuments before they build equity. Legion Field didn't fail these neighborhoods by itself. Planning failed them. Policy failed them. Selective investment failed them. And this story isn't unique to Birmingham. Every city has a stadium, a highway, or a landmark that changed everything around it, and not always for the better. So when people talk about Legion Field like it's just an old stadium, remember this: the history around it didn't disappear. It just stopped being prioritized. And this isn't the only place where that happened. Every city has streets like this.